The Ryan Tubridy Show on RTE Radio 1 with Vodafone Simply Broadband. All the fibre broadband you want, none of the landline costs you don't.
Hi, I'm Lisa Delaney for RTE Radio 1. Next up we have a little documentary about an amazing and inspiring woman. Mary Glynn is a medical miracle. She endured an enormous amount of pain and continued to impress and inspire everyone around her. Before Mary suffered an aneurysm, she was an everyday busy mother who loved being on the go.
Well, I was always on the go before anything happened. Rushing here, rushing there. As my neighbours used to say, you're always running, Mary, and running.
The journey Mary has been on has not been an easy journey. Any complication that could occur occurred to Mary.
I was complaining with this headache. It was like a hammering, right at the back of your head. That's what it felt like anyway. Someone hammering it was really painful. I thought it was just a normal headache, where I didn't really suffer with headaches like before that. It just happened so sudden, yeah.
I was at home. I actually rang Mary because she was heading on her holidays, and I was ringing her just to see if she had everything packed and sorted. And her husband said that she was in bed all day with a very bad headache. So I just said to bring the phone up till I talked to her, and she just said it was not like a normal headache, it was just someone banging at the back of her head. So I just told her to give the phone back to her husband, and I just said to her husband to get an ambulance straight away. So we actually brought them up to their own family doctor.
When I went in, my own doctor wasn't there. There was a lady doctor, which I reckon saved my life. She just said it sounded like a blade. An aneurysm was the word she used. So she told me to go straight to James's Hospital, which I did. When I got to James Hospital, I was there for one night, and then I was sent to Beaumont.
And within a matter of an hour, and James is still diagnosed with an aneurysm. They said it was a bleed to the brain, and to actually prevent Mary from dying, they needed to operate straight away, and they needed to shift her to Beaumont Hospital because they were the brain specialists to operate to stop the bleed. But obviously there were side effects from that, which one of them was stroke, which would leave her paralysed. But he named numerous things what could happen. But also if she didn't have the operation, that she could actually die. So rather than I'd been dead within a matter of hours, they said, yeah, we'll go for the operation.
A brain aneurysm is a bulging weak area in the wall of an artery that supplies blood to the brain. In most cases, a brain aneurysm causes no symptoms, goes unnoticed, and in rare cases, the brain aneurysm ruptures. This rupture releases blood into the skull and causes a stroke.
What's the other outcome of the operation? And he said to me, well, he said, you might have a stroke, he said, but we won't know what sort of a stroke you'll have till after the operation. So I had the operation anyway, and it was a success. They stopped the blade, they put a clip in. After that then, I was in a coma for 6 weeks, and they put me into an induced coma because the doctor said that my body wouldn't be able to cope with the reaction. This is what I was told, and that's why they put me into an induced coma.
I'll never forget then when I went up to see her. She was in intensive care, and the nurse brought myself and Thomas up. There was only allowed one person in at a time. Mary's ward was cut off, and I was walking down, and I actually didn't recognise. Her head was swollen that much. I didn't recognise that it was Mary. I was actually walking past. The nurse explained she was in a induced coma, but they had her in after the operation. They just said they had to keep her sedated because of the operation, and it'd be a couple of days. So this went on for several days, and they were kind of slowly trying to bring her out from the coma, but her body was reacting very badly, and we were in the hospital around the clock, the family. Gradually they were bringing her out, and she kind of made a bit of progress, and then she'd slip back. Then they were putting her back into a coma, and she developed pneumonia, and it was very bad then at that stage. All the family was called back again. I don't really remember where I was when I found out about my ma, but I remember her being in hospital, and I remember the night that my dad came home and said that she had 24 hours to live. We were all in my nana's house, my mum's mum, and my dad came home. My dad was up in the hospital, and he came home, and we were all in the parlour, and he came in and he said, he called me and me two brothers into the parlour, and I knew something was wrong because he couldn't get out what he was trying to say, and he just told us that she had 24, the doctor said she had 24 hours to live. I just remember crying. I don't know what I did. I just remember standing there and crying. I kept saying, why, what's wrong. All we could basically do at that time, and Mary's recovery, was just pray, because there was absolutely nothing that the hospital could do. She was at having her operation, and they explained that nothing else could be done. So we just were at the hospital all the time, just sitting at the bed praying, really, basically. And she was weeks in intensive care after that still. I remember being brought up to the hospital. I remember the first time when I was brought up to the hospital when she was in the really bad state, and she was on every kind of drip, and everything was plugged into her. And I remember my dad saying to me, now when you go in, don't be frightened of her. She doesn't look like your ma. And he said, well, all those things are helping her. Everything that's on her is helping her. And I just remember seeing her, and I was like, that's not me ma. Like, she had drips coming out of everywhere and machines beeping, and I remember saying to my dad, can she hear me? And my dad said, yeah, well, you can talk to her if you want, she can hear you. I remember talking to her and stuff. But I remember going to the hospital when she was in that state as well, and I remember holding her hand and saying something to her, and she squeezed my hand.
And I was in the coma for 6 weeks, and then one day they just brought me out of the coma. I remember waking up when I was woken up, and I knew there was something wrong, dramatic, because I just automatically looked to my left side for some reason, because I knew there was something wrong. And at that stage I had a trachea in, so I sort of couldn't talk or anything, you know. I just kept looking to the left side. I could absolutely do nothing for myself, like, you know. It was just a hopeless, to me. I wasn't able to do anything, talk even.
So obviously her voice was gone as well, so they had to explain to her that she couldn't talk. So with her coming around to be told she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she was just totally couldn't believe what was happening, no more than we could believe what was happening. But she was just like a vegetable, mentally and physically, just lying in the bed for a long, long time.
I never even knew what a trachea was till I had one. It's a thing in your throat, and which I have to say mine closed up great now. An awful lot of people, it shows, you know, it never closes up. But it was to help you breathe and that, you know.
A trachea is a tube-like portion of the respiratory tract that connects the larynx with the bronchial part of the lungs.
I remember one day, the doctor came in, he says, I'm going to take the trachea out. This is one of the things I remember. And he said, I'm going to say, he said, Mary, we're not 100% whether you'll be able to talk when we take this out. And I just looked at him, and I threw my eyes up to heaven, and I said, don't take my voice away. I said, wherever you still. I remember him taking her out anyway, and the first one came into the ward was me mum. And she says, how are you? And I said, how are you, Lily? And she couldn't believe it. She was, oh my God, you can talk. So I said nothing when the girls came in. And I said, don't say anything until they come in and you were sitting down. And I said, how are you, girls? And they couldn't believe it. They started crying and I started crying. But it was brilliant that I could talk. Because I said, don't take my voice away. That's what I said. I looked up to God and I said, don't take my voice away, please. And he listened to me, I think.
I remember going up one time with my cousin Sarah, and my dad brought the two of us up. That was kind of our routine. Like, it kind of got into the routine of my dad be up in the hospital
during the day when I'd be in school, and then he'd come home and he'd make the dinner, and then he'd bring us back up then that evening. Like, so that was our daily routine kind of. And one day anyway, Sarah came up with us that evening, and I remember my ma sitting up, and this would have been, well, I don't know how long it would have been since, but and anyway, she wasn't able to talk for a long time. And I remember walking in, and she was sitting up in her chair, and she turned and she seen us coming in, and she said, "Hello, Sarah." And that was the first time she talked, and I was just like, "What?" And she was like, but it wasn't like, "Hello, Sarah," it wasn't that clear, like, but she actually said it, and that was the first time she had talked, like, well, that's the first time I had heard her talking, and in a long time. And Sarah just looked at me, she was like, and I was like, I don't know, like, I didn't know what to say. I was delighted. I went over and hugged her. So that would have been a time that I was so proud of her, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, they said she'd never talk again, so, well, that's what I remember them saying, she'd never talk again. So I was like, but she's talking. So that was brilliant.
From Beaumont I was transferred back to James's, and I thought something else was going to happen me. I said to the doctor's wife I had to go to James. He said, because we're finished with your hair. And I sort of was in shock, if you know what I mean.
I'll never forget when she was transferred from Beaumont over to James's initially. I was going on my way up to see her in Beaumont, and we always used to contact each other before we'd go over on a visit, because we'd be changing over that. And Johnny was in Beaumont, and he said she was getting transferred to James's Hospital, and would I go straight to James's from work and meet her off the ambulance there, because he had to drive back over. And I got straight up to James's, and I was waiting on the ward for her to come up. And I just never forget it to this day, because I was at the end of the ward in James's Hospital, and I heard these horrific screams, and it was like a child, and it was Aunt Mary. I knew straight away, I knew the voice, and she was just calling for her mum. She just kept saying, "Oh, mum, where are you, mum? Mum, I want you. I don't know where I am." And she was just screaming, and the lift doors were just opening. It was all the way down the corridor, and I went up to meet her, and she just didn't know where she was, or she knew she was in a strange environment, and there were strange people away around her. And I just stood beside the bed as they were weighing it down. I just said, "It's me, it's Liz. Ma'll be here now in a few minutes, and Johnny'll be here in a few minutes, and you'll be all right, you'll be okay, shush," because at this stage she was just like a child, and you just had to keep reassuring her, encouraging her, everything was going to be okay, she was going to be okay. And she just calmed down slowly on the way up the corridor, but it took her a long time. But finally, after months and months of waiting, she got transferred over to Delaney, which was a turning point for Mary. She really came on leaps and bounds regards getting up out of the wheelchair herself. They done hydrophysiotherapy with her there, and just the day-to-day things, because Mary could absolutely do nothing for herself. So they kind of encouraged her to kind of do regards, get up out of the wheelchair and kind of do little things for herself, even trying to put on a cardigan or do little small things like that, but she couldn't physically do. They were trying to encourage her to do things like that.
From that then they kind of went down the road for rehabilitation. So obviously Delaney was the main place down for that. So she was transferred to Delaney, and she did, I know, a long time in Delaney as well. They did a lot of therapy with her in the water. Obviously Delaney was equipped for getting her in and out, because obviously at this stage she wasn't walking, she was in a wheelchair all the time, so they were trying to walk the muscles.
We used to always kind of, when I'd be up in the hospital with my dad and she had physio, I'd go down with her to the physio, and it used to be horrible. Most of the time it used to be horrible, because the pain that she'd be in and she'd be doing, but she'd keep doing it, and she'd bite through the pain kind of, and she'd be just like, "I'm gonna do it."
Oh, it was intense physio, because I was still in an awful lot of pain, like, and the physio was tough, but every day up, down to physio. That was your breakfast physio, and then occupational therapist, but the physio was the hardest part of it. It was tough going.
When you look at it in perspective from what she has to put up with, you know, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it till this day. She's an inspiration to us all.
Well, that was an emotional journey. Well done, Mary, on your enormous success. We are so proud of you. I'm Lisa Delaney for RTE Radio 1. Thank you for listening.